of right in the middle of our wheelhouse when we host the show. But your thoughts about anything in particular that came out of that caught your attention, or anything right now with the team that's caught your attention?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first place to start is probably wide receiver. And I know we've talked about this position, it feels like ad nauseum at this point, but the more that I look at this group and the more that I kind of look at the injuries they've been having to deal with, and just, I mean, guys, it's kind of alarming. And I know they have talent in the room, and I know they have, really good young pieces, but they've been dealing with the injury bug a little bit. And now they're just trying to get healthy. But the more I look at it, the more I think I do believe they're going to try to get someone from the transfer portal to come in and create a little more stability there, give them an older guy, especially on the outside. And so, I don't know. I think the more I watch it, the more I look at it, the more I think it just makes too much sense for this team to try to go out and get another reliable weapon. And that's not to say that the talent on the roster isn't really good. I just think it's so unproven that it just would be kind of shocking to me if they go into the season just relying on all of these young guys, because it's not something really Baylor has ever done, at least in my time covering them.
Is there someone that you've looked at, a veteran in the transfer portal? I mean, it's hard to keep track of, but is there a Drew Estrada? Is that what we're maybe thinking about, someone like that caliber?
See, that's a really good question, because I think if there was a Drew Estrada, that would probably be a really good fit for Baylor this year. But I also could see them taking a risk on maybe a guy that, hasn't played a ton at a previous stop. And yeah, you're sitting there and going, well, it's the same problem, right? You got unproven production, but I just think, adding as much talent as possible could be an option, or trying to find someone like you mentioned, like a Drew Estrada, who has proven production, just maybe not at, the Power 5 level. So there's really no one in the portal right now that is standing out to me too much. And it's one of those situations where we saw how quickly they offered Josh White. We saw how quickly they've, pursued options in the portal once those guys become available. And we've also seen guys enter the portal and Baylor not react at all. So I think kind of what I'm looking at when guys, enter the portal and Baylor actually does have interest, you're going to see them be far more aggressive than they have been. So right now, I think they're still kind of evaluating. And I would say, the guy that they might end up taking, or the guy they may end up looking at, might be someone who's not even in the portal yet.
Grayson, we were talking about the Football Power Index from ESPN just a few minutes ago, and it's not an exact science. It's a predictor. It's a computer model and all of that. Baylor was at, 19?
Yes.
19. So if Baylor was at 19 in the preseason top 25 poll, what would your reaction be to that? Too high, too low, what?
Honestly, I think that's right about perfect.
Yeah.
And I know some people might be, upset with that answer, defending Big 12 champs, they return all this production. But, I will say, I think there's still more to prove from this Baylor team. And I do think they're replacing a lot of key parts. And so I think that's a pretty fair ranking. Now, for me, they'd probably be inside the top 15. I do think that they have that kind of ceiling. They have that pedigree with the addition. But I think with all the question marks and, kind of that national media perception as well, I think top 20 is plenty fair at this point.
Yeah, and I want to go back to what you were mentioning about the wide receivers. Craig mentioned who was there, who wasn't there at practice. And you hear this thing.
Who was there?
Yeah,
like four guys who wasn't everybody else, Grayson.
The best ability is availability. And that's a position that can be, again, bumps and bruises. They're kind of, out there, hamstring, foot, toe, whatever. I'm glad you brought that up, because you have guys who are obviously talented, Jalen Ellis, Gavin Holmes, etc., but we never see them, it seems like, consistently sustain any kind of success, even in practice.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Smoak, just to that point, you just brought up, Jalen Ellis and Gavin Holmes, two of the most injured guys that, we've seen, especially Gavin Holmes. He's had serious injuries. And so it's hard for me to sit here and go, man, that you can for sure rely on him for the entire season. That's really hard to predict. And same with Jalen Ellis. It just seems like he's had so many nagging injuries. And then you look over and it's like Hal Presley's hurt. Javon Gibson's been hurt. You seriously are sitting there going, man, Armani Winfield, who's a true freshman, and Josh Cameron, who's a walk-on, might be the best receivers on this team right now. And I just don't know if you can go into the season, thinking that that's a great thing. And also, obviously, Monterey Baldwin as well. But he's not an outside receiver. He's more of a slot gadget type. It's just really interesting. And the more I look at it, the more I just feel like it makes sense for them to try to upgrade the room with more talent or more experience, one or the other.
Grayson, I think with